Shen Jiawei is obsessed with history books and has self-promoted as an artist specializing in representing history through his paintings. Nonetheless, after decades of drawing and painting, he looks back and realizes that the history in his work consists of nothing more than people, a collage of historical figures. He is, after all, a portrait painter. Jiawei migrated to Australia as a middle-aged man. Penniless, he survived on his professional training through sketching portraits on the street. Decades has passed, and the content of his portfolio has developed from tourists to a prime minister, a governor-general, a cardinal, a princess, and 2 popes, and he has become a publicly acknowledged master portrait painter. Time flies, his subjects have been ingested into history. The prime minister elected and rejected, the princess now a queen. Jiawei finally understands that he is indeed an artist specializing in history. And what's more, he has painted himself into the history. Do you agree with Jiawei that you and he and all of us are part of history? We are the onlookers of history, but we are also its hostages. In the grand cosmos, our global village is a small dot, and we are merely the dust. But back in our world, every lively face represents a unique cosmos. This is what gives significance and satisfaction to Jiawei, a portrait painter specializing in history, and to you. Shen Jiawei, born 1948 in China, largely by self-taught, Shen Jiawei became one of the most influential painters in China in 1970s. One of his famous works from this era, Standing Guard for Our Great Motherland, exhibited at the Guggenheim Museum and at the Asia Society Museum, both in New York, and now in the collection of the Long Museum in Shanghai. From 1982 to 1984, he studied in the Central Academy of the Fine Arts in Beijing. Shen won awards 5 times at the China National Art Exhibitions. He immigrated to Australia in 1989 and is now one of the leading portrait and history painters in Australia and overseas. Shen is a 14-time finalist for the Archibald Prize, and also winners for Mary MacKillop Art Award in 1995, Sir John Salmon Prize in 2006, and Gallipoli Art Prize in 2016. He was commissioned 4 times by Australian National Portrait Gallery, 4 times by Australian Federal Parliament House to paint portraits for celebrities, including the Danish Queen Mary, the Australian Prime Minister John Howard, and Governor-General Sir Peter Cosgrove. His portrait of Pope Francis is in Vatican collection. Shen's works are in state and national collections in both Australia and China, including his 18 history paintings collected by National Museum, National Art Museum, and Military Museum, all in Beijing. In recent years, he created large historical figures painting Brothers and Sisters and 130 square meters mural Tower of Babel. The truth lies there. John MacDonald. Shen Jiawei has taken up the story at the end of the Long March, in the years 1936 to 1937. In Brothers and Sisters, he creates a mural-sized painting. Shen focuses on 1936 to 1937 because it was an eventful time in which Chiang Kai-shek was kidnapped by other nationalist generals and forced to sign a united front against the Japanese invasion. It was also the period when Mao consolidated his hold on power, and the first concerted resistance was mounted to the Japanese occupation that had begun in 1931. Shen is one of the very few artists anywhere in the world who still pursue the unfashionable genre of history painting. Shen's painting style has been described pejoratively as realistic or academic, but there is nothing remotely realistic about these impossible group portraits. A more thoughtful critic might argue that an artist who aims to engage didactically with history must also question the methods he employs rather than simply rely on conventional styles of painting. But Shen is not about to sacrifice everything he does well in order to embrace a more experimental approach. He is obsessed with history and follows its twists and turns with the interest of a dedicated intellectual. For Shen, it is more important to convey a strong sense of content than to worry about subverting the medium. By putting so many diverse personalities together on one canvas, Shen wants us to understand the depth and complexity of history. We know the outlines of a story, but every person brings his or her own emphasis to the way it unfolds. There are many different points of view, countless opportunities for debate and reflection. No two memories of an event are identical. Shen is trying to convey the subjective, fallible nature of historical discourse. Even when the standard account of an incident is not infected with propaganda, it is largely a matter of consensus with no guarantee of truth. He falls back on the idea that history is writ large on the faces of those who played leading roles, inviting us to seek insights into their features and attitudes. The truth lies somewhere in the sum total of experience of the figures Shen brings to life in this painting. It's a quality that cannot be extracted and pinned down. It remains tantalizingly out of reach, but we look and know it exists.